Hey friend, I'm Mike McCurry. You're listening to Bible Tract Echoes, and I'm so thankful that you are. We've been talking about the thought life, different aspects of our thought life, difficult thoughts that we may be dealing with. And today, you may have guessed it, but we are going to have to talk about lascivious thoughts. Those thoughts that cause us to do evil. I'm going to encourage you to buckle in and listen to the Bible that I share, listen to the illustrations that I share, because that's not all. We're also going to talk about those lingering thoughts. Sometimes there are these patterns of thoughts. There's these ruts that we can get into. We are all guilty of it. Friend, I'm not just accusing you. I can get there myself. We have this one way of thinking, and it cripples us. It causes us to not live the Christian life, not live the victorious Christian life that we should. My desire, my goal, my hope is that what is said today will be a blessing and will be a help to you. Had the opportunity to speak at a Pure Life Summit that a friend of mine, Brother Dave Brady, put on not that long ago. And these are some thoughts that I shared from that. His ministry is Purity Plan Ministries. I encourage you to look up what he has going on. Purity Plan Ministries. This ministry will be a help to you if you let it. I'd encourage you to do so. I'm going to ask you, if you would, though, before we do that, to tune in and listen with not just your ears, listen with your mind and your heart to what God has for us right now. Of course, you knew we were going to come here. Lascivious thoughts. Low thoughts, lack of thought, loose thoughts, lascivious thoughts. Mark 7:21, for from within, out of the heart of men proceed evil thoughts, adulteries, fornications, murders, thefts, covetousness, wickedness, deceit, lasciviousness, an evil eye, blasphemy, pride, foolishness. All these evil things come from within and defile the man. And here's another, talking about lack of thought, but Ephesians 4:19, who being past feeling have given themselves over unto lasciviousness to work all uncleanness with greediness. 2 Samuel 11. What did David do? Unchecked, lascivious, lustful thoughts. What did it lead to? It started with just thoughts. Now, it came through his eye gate, but there is the thought, I wonder if I'm the king, I can do whatever I want. What did it lead to? Adultery and murder and the death of a child. Marcus Aurelius, Roman philosopher, emperor, wrote this, such as are your habitual thoughts, such also will be the character of your mind. I'd encourage you, maybe you don't have time for it now, but 2 Corinthians 10:5, casting down imaginations. I'd encourage you to inspect your hearts and ask God to help you overcome some of those thoughts. We're going to end here, lingering thoughts. Philippians 4:8, it's where we started. Finally, brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report, if there be any virtue, if there be any praise, think on these things. There may be some category that I haven't mentioned, or maybe something I already mentioned, and the problem is not so much that you will slap at them, you'll beat them down, you'll defeat them, but they just seem to linger. Martin Luther famously said, you cannot keep birds from flying over your head, but you can keep them from building a nest in your hair. Could think of so many different biblical characters, but Genesis 27, remember Esau's lingering resentment? What did it do? It fueled hostility. It eventually affected their descendants. Those lingering thoughts, the ones you like to just coddle a little bit, the ones you let stick around, they're not so bad now. Those little lascivious thoughts, or maybe it is those little low thoughts. You let yourself just spin through just one cycle of depression. You don't get too low, but you know what's happening when it starts, and you just let it happen because you enjoy. I remember, and maybe this is telling on me and my lack of spirituality, probably I read a lot as a kid. And one of the things I read a lot was Calvin and Hobbes. Now, I don't know if you should let your kids read Calvin and Hobbes or not. It certainly affected me a little bit. But my mom says that my brothers and I, our first language was sarcasm, and English came second. All right, so I don't know. But I remember there was a particular comic strip, I think it was written by Bill Watterson, was the author of Calvin and Hobbes. And Calvin comes out to the school bus. I think maybe it's raining that day, something like that. He has just a foul mood, a bad attitude. And he's just sitting there, and the speech bubble above his head just has all these squiggly lines. He's irritated. He's got a scowl on his face. Susie Durkins, that's the girl that lives next door. She comes out. She stands beside him. Hey, Calvin, how you doing? He just like screams at her, yells at her, just says something just mean to her. And then the next comic pane, it's both of them with the squiggly lines over their head. And then Calvin says this in his mind. He thinks, nothing helps a bad mood like spreading it around. And we like to do that, don't we? We like to spread it around, or we just like to linger in it. We like to languish. We like to, whether we even let everyone else know how bad things are, we just like to just be irritated or low or lascivious all by ourselves and enjoy the rotten fruit from our mind. But those lingering thoughts, they can get you. It's said, and it seems to be on good authority, but it said that captive elephants, and you realize an elephant is an enormous creature. They are incredibly powerful, but it's said that they are conditioned to believe when chained. Now, they'll just have, as an adult, they'll have this chain with this just little stake in the ground. And they won't pull away. They won't run away. But the reason for that is because as little elephants, they were chained with a big enough stake, just as a little baby elephant, that they could not pull away. And then they began to grow, and they just continued to believe that same little stake. Now, it's minuscule compared to them as adults. That same little stake is enough to keep them from pulling away. All because it got them when they were little. There are so many of the things that you deal with. I'm not minimizing them. I'm not, especially those of you that have the hooks of whether it be lustful thoughts, whether it be depressive thoughts, whatever it may be, those hooks that are in you, I'm not diminishing. I'm not putting those things down. But I will tell you this, friend, they are not bigger than the God of the universe that created you. You and God make a majority. A wiser man than I said that, but I'd like to tweak it just a little bit. You and God might make a majority, that's true, but he's got a majority all by himself. He doesn't even need you. Point being, though, he wants you on his side. He wants to have a majority with you. He's powerful enough. It could be the world, every man, woman, and child in the world against God. He'd still have the majority. But he wants you on his side. And he is more than capable, more than powerful enough, more than compassionate enough, more than graceful enough, more than merciful enough to take care of and to, will there be scars left from some of those hooks? Could well be. But I'll tell you what, given the choice between living with a few scars or living with the hook in you or the snake fangs in you, I'd encourage you, let the great physician do a little surgery tonight and pull some of those things out. It's going to need a salve. It's going to need some wound care. It could be some of those things are a little infected. Maybe he might have to, with the word of God sharper than any two-edged sword, he might have to cut deep, not just tonight, but in coming days. And that's something I'd encourage you to talk to Brother Brady about, some of the things, the materials he has. Some of this might require some ongoing care. But I encourage you, these lingering thoughts, they will end up killing if we don't do surgery soon. It might be that this is the last blunt admonition you get. Proverbs 29:1, I believe it is, he that being often reproved hardeneth his neck shall suddenly be destroyed, and that without remedy. Oh, I can coddle this one just a little longer. The hooks aren't that bad. They hurt, but they aren't that bad. I don't know which of these might have spoken to you. Maybe the Holy Spirit, he's a far better preacher than I'll ever be. Maybe he spoke to you about something else. Maybe it's loose thoughts. Maybe it's just that lack of thought. Maybe you've had your brain in neutral, and because of that, you've stumbled into some really bad things. And you know it only started with the gateway. You know it only started with scrolling the video feed on the video tab on Facebook. That's where it started. You just zoned out, and then the algorithm. The algorithm's smarter than you, right? And the algorithm just brought the right one that got you to go over to you fill in the blank, whether it be Reddit or your preferred site. And it wasn't the lascivious thought, first of all. It was the lack of thought that started it. I wonder, loose thoughts, lack of thought, low thoughts, lascivious thoughts, or lingering thoughts. It could be this evening, the Lord speaking to you about one or more of those. I'd encourage you, if there are some specific decisions that you need to make, maybe you need some accountability for some of these things. I'd encourage you to talk to your pastor. I'd encourage you to talk to a man like Brother Brady. He'd be wonderful at directing you and how to best put together an accountability plan. But maybe, just maybe, there are some things on your phone, on your computer, just in your environment that they can't be there tomorrow. Tonight, they're not a problem. You're coming off a great evening, hearing some preaching, all that. Tonight, they're not a problem. But tomorrow night, we don't have the Pure Life Summit tomorrow night, and so it's going to be a problem then. Maybe you need to jettison them. Maybe some of the things we're talking about, maybe Facebook isn't by itself a sin. Maybe it's a weight that leads you to sin. Friend, I'd ask you, would you inspect your heart? Maybe, just maybe, you should reach out to my friend Dave Brady. Maybe you should consider going to purityplan.org, purityplan.org. That's the website for Brother Dave Brady. He's a friend of mine that he put on a Pure Life Summit. That's where some of these thoughts on the thought life came from for this week. Maybe you're struggling with some of those things, but if I can be a help to you, you know me, you hear me on the radio all the time. If I can be a help, feel free to text me. Text me at 309-316-7240. That's 309-316-7240. Tomorrow on the broadcast and Friday, I want to give just a little bit of biblical basis for hope. I hope you haven't lost hope. Here we are, just a day into a new year, and there is hope. I want to share that with you the remainder of this week. Thank you for listening. Have a great day for His glory. We'll plan on talking to you soon. God bless.
Thank you for tuning in to Bible Tract Echoes, the radio ministry of Bible Tracts Incorporated. Want to see our gospel tracts and other resources? Visit us online at BibleTractsInc.org. That's BibleTractsInc.org. Or follow us on social media to learn how you can partner with this ministry. Thanks again for listening. May the Lord richly bless you as you live for Him.